Is that an original painting, sir?
Oh, yes, nearly everything here is original. That was done in Austria, 1761. The discovery of America.
The discovery of America. Is it all in there?
Nearly.
Isn't that fantastic? Look at that. The discovery of America. I think I'm just going to leave this $10 here on the table, sir. That way it's out of my hands.
Oh, relax, relax. Take a minute. Try one of these, eh? Try a few of them, in fact.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. This looks good, may I, sir?
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Hopefully this will be a quick one, but it will be educational nonetheless. I just wanted to get on here and make a video about something that I actually came across in my research that I found really interesting, something that further proves that the now so-called African American is actually the reclassified Native American. Because not only is there so much proof and evidence in different advertisements, old logos, old movies, old songs even, it's literally all over the place. It's not even difficult to uncover proof that the Negro or the so-called African American is actually not African. But a lot of us are actually Native Americans that were reclassified. That's why a lot of our elders, our grandparents and great-grandparents told us that they were Native American or that they were such and such tribe or that their mother or their father was Native American. They weren't talking about Pocahontas because the actual Native Americans don't look like that. The actual Native Americans were, are, and always have been a Negroid people. And there is an overwhelming amount of evidence, archaeological, different art, different movies, like I said, old advertisements, old commercials that prove that to be the case. This whole new narrative that these Asian people are the Native Americans is very, very new and very false on every side of that lie. So as I was doing research, just for other videos, I came across this all Negro or all colored group of dancing girls from the 1920s to 1940s, I believe, or 1900s to 1940s. And they were called the copper colored girls. I'll say that again. It was an all Negro group of dancing girls, or like can girls. All Negro group, all colored group. And they were called copper colored girls. Now, when you hear the term copper colored or copper complexion, most people would think of a Native American, because we know that to be a term that they use to refer to Native Americans, copper-colored or copper-skinned, copper complexion. So why was this group of all the Negro Black American women, all colored, all Negro, group of Black American dancing girls called copper-colored girls? People completely forget about the copper-colored thing. If these Chinese, Mongolian, East Asian people that claim to be Native American today are Native American, first of all, there's no any amount of proof or any type of evidence to prove that they're Native American. The reason that they and the rest of the world believes they're Native American is because the white man said so. But if they're actually Native American, where is their copper skin complexion? Where is their copper skin complexion? People have forgotten basic color theory. So this all Negro, all colored group of Black American women, these dancing girls in the 1900s, 1920s, etc., were called copper colored girls. Now, would you see a group of Asian women or a group of the people that claim to be Native American today, who really are Asian, would you look at them and say, oh yeah, they're the color of copper, they're the color of a penny? You wouldn't. So there's a reason they've tried to sweep that copper colored term under the rug and make it obsolete, because, like I said, people have forgotten basic color theory. So here we're in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, and let's get the definition of American. Now, so this dictionary is from almost 200 years ago, and we're going to get the definition of American, because like I said, they're trying their damnedest to make the copper-colored term obsolete, because they know that copper means brown. Copper doesn't mean Asian. It doesn't mean Korean. It doesn't mean Chinese. It doesn't mean Siberian and Mongolian. These people that claim to be Native American today, they're the same complexion as a Caucasian Edomite. So, copper ranges from brown to very, very deep, dark brown. Think of a penny. I've seen some really dark pennies. And that's not talking about this. So 1828 Webster's Dictionary, let's get the definition of American. American, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by Europeans. Those Europeans were also swarthy or melanated, or could be called copper-colored themselves. So an American is a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races, or copper-colored races, or copper-colored races. So in the 1920s, there's an all-Negro, all-colored group of dancing girls, and they are called copper-colored girls. The group was called copper-colored girls, or copper-colored gals, I should say. That's what the group was called. So if these Asian-looking people are the Native Americans, why in the 1920s was this all-black group of dancing girls called copper-colored girls? Shouldn't they have been Asian then? Would you look at a Korean and say they're copper-colored? They know who the Native Americans are. They know who they were back then. They know who they are now. Who they still are. Who they always have been. The Negro. We're dealing with paper genocide. We're dealing with the loss of identity that comes after paper genocide. They appointed these Asian people and said they're the Native Americans, and then they told the Native Americans, you're now African American. That's the reason they got black children in school with them. It wasn't about integration and equality. It was to put the narrative in the new generation. So now you would believe you're African instead of what grandma said, instead of what granddaddy said, when he said that, they were Native American. That's the only reason they integrated schools, because before then we knew who we were. It was to push the narrative. So you commit paper genocide, you call the Native American, you start calling them African now, and then you take the now newly named African American children and indoctrinate them in school, because that's what public school is. It's nothing but indoctrination camps. They're not learning one thing that actually took place historically. So the definition of American is a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races. Copper-colored. These people that say they're Native American today are not copper-colored. So here I have a little excerpt that I found going into the history of these copper-colored gals, and I just thought I'd read it to sort of drive this point home. So like I said, this was in the 1920s to 1940s, and I keep saying it, this was a group of all black women, all black American women or Negroes who were these dancing girls, and they were called copper-colored gals. So what are they telling you? The Negroes copper-colored. Well, what's the definition of a Native American or an American? To be copper-colored. You do the math. Opened in 1923, the Cotton Club quickly rose to fame. Visitors from around the world took the A train to Harlem to get to the club, located on 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue. The owner, a gangster by the name of Oni Madden, used the club to sell beer during the Prohibition era. Clientele made up of mostly elite white New Yorkers visited the Cotton Club to drink alcohol and enjoy music and dancing. However, the entertainers, as well as most of the staff, were African American. We know we're not dealing with Africans. We know we're dealing with the descendants of either swarthy Native Americans or swarthy indigenous Europeans. But let's move on. Jazz musicians such as Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway played music while the Cotton Club girls danced. The Cotton Club girls, also known as the copper-colored gals, were a group of light-skinned dancers and singers. See, they threw that light skin in there to try to, they know what copper-colored means. When you look at pictures of these copper-colored gals, they weren't all light-skinned. But the reason they threw that light skin in there is to try to make a connection, to build a bridge between this copper-colored term and the fake people that claim to be Native American today. Because if they just said they were black, if they just said they were Negroes, then you would go, well, why are Negroes called copper-colored? Why aren't the fake Asian people that say they're Native American today called copper-colored? So that's the reason they said they're light-skinned there. But when you actually look into the history and you look at the pictures of these women, not all of them were what would be considered high yellow or light skins. So that's them trying to make a bridge between this term that they know refers to Native Americans and, make sure that they're not giving too much away here that the Negro is a Native American. These women were way darker than the people that claim to be Native American today. And them being way darker meant that they were exactly what they were called, copper-colored gals. So the Cotton Club girls, also known as the copper-colored gals, were a group of light-skinned, really, they were just copper-colored. They were not light-skinned. They were nowhere near the complexion of the fake Asians that claim to be Native American today. Were a group of dancers and singers. They had to be at least 5 feet and 6 inches tall, under 21 years of age, and light-skinned enough to pass the brown paper bag test. This criteria was not unique to the Cotton Club. For decades, it had been used to determine acceptance into fraternities, universities, and other institutions. So we know about the brown paper bag test and everything, but a lot of what's in this article is trying to build a bridge between, explain away basically why all these black women were called copper-colored gals, if they're so-called African. Ain't nobody ever seen a group of these people that claim to be Native American today and called them copper-colored anything. Like I said, they're the same complexion as the Caucasian Edomite. They say the best place to put the truth is in between two lies. But the most important part of this article is that they were called copper-colored gals, and it was an all-black group of women. These weren't Asians, they weren't white, they weren't these people that are claiming to be Native American today. They were all Negroes, and they were called copper-colored gals, which goes to show that back then, apparently, they still remembered their basic colors and color theory and understood what color brown or copper is. So that's going to be all for this video. It was short, but hopefully it was educational. You know, it's just little things like this that I guess really aren't so little that show how common this knowledge is. You know, the only people that don't know who Black Americans are the Black Americans. But fortunately, you know, by the grace of the Most High, we are rapidly coming into this truth. You know, a lot of us are descendants of the real Negro Native Americans. The Native Americans have always been Negroes. And, you know, just because people are given a name does not mean that that is their origin or that is their descent. There are hundreds of pieces of artwork and statues and engravings, archaeological evidence, old packaging for cigars, old commercials, scenes in movies that explicitly state and show that the Negro is the real Native American. And this group of all Negro or all colored dancing girls from almost 100 years ago, being called copper-colored gals, is a part of the evidence that proves that fact.
Guests.
Well, I thought you said he was writing a book.
Said I was writing an essay, and it requires some shut mouth.
Don't waste your time on those junkyard losers. This country was built on genocide and slavery. We killed all the black guys that were here, and then we shipped in new black guys of our own. And then we brought in Jesus like a bar of soap.
Let's go.
You know it. I am the religious correspondent. Fuck off with your Jesus.
Always called us what we are.
I had to go to the bathroom.
Again?
It's my first time.
It's the third time. You got the weakest bladder I ever saw.
You're too drunk to count.
Who's right? Him or me?
You're both right. It is the third time, and you are drunk.
That's the trouble with being an Indian. 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 You can't hold your fire water.
Don't worry about it. Don't
I see you in there. Are you asleep? Come on, you're not sleeping. Listen to me. I'm asking. You hear me? I'm asking. You black little Indian, come on, do you hear me?
You know something? You got a bad mouth, Mr. Paxton.